so much for joining us today. We know it's fall. It's a really, really busy time for everyone. So we're very grateful that you're dedicating your time to spend here with us and learn more about how do we move ahead in the operating models. How do we look at HR differently? There's so much going on with AI. I think it's nearly impossible to keep up with all of the information and knowing on your own what it is that I do that's the best for my organization. So that's why we're here today, to have an amazing conversation with two of our friend experts and talk about HR operating models. How do we move ahead? And also, what role does employee listening have in all of this? So without further ado, let's get started. As we mentioned, our topic for today is what role does employee listening have in the era of AI? And I will introduce myself quickly first. I'm today's host. You're going to hear the least from me this time around. I am the president of QuestionPro's Employee Experience Business Unit. I'm an organizational psychologist. I've been in the world of technology for a little bit over 2 decades and just incredibly passionate about understanding where we are today and just really as a community what's the best way to move ahead. And so I've been very fortunate in my life to have a lot of really brilliant friends such as Ian and Bennett that have helped me think about these really big topics and helped educate me about things that I wasn't aware about or challenge the way I think and bring different perspectives. And so the three of us have been talking a lot lately, and we thought, hey, we've had some really good discussions, some really good ideas. Ian and Bennett have an amazing framework coming out, and we wanted to share this time with you and bring their knowledge to you as well as you think about what's the best way not only to navigate the future, but how do you set up yourself and your organization for success? So, without further ado, Ian, would you please kick us off and introduce yourself, and then we'll turn the mic over to Bennett.
Sure. Great to see you, Sanja, as always. And Bennett, good to see you again for the maybe fourth time today, I think. Ian O'Keefe, founder and CEO of Ikona Analytics. I've spent the last 20 plus years or so running people analytics at big companies, Amazon, Google, JP Morgan, et cetera. And had the good fortune of crossing paths with Bennett a decade or so ago during our time in financial services in New York. And we had the chance to work together at Amazon. And now we've kind of joined forces to start Ikona. And in short, Ikona is an HR transformation and AI enablement company. And we help enterprise HR organizations transform and kind of fix what's broken, what's not wired properly with, among other things, the framework that we'll talk about today, which includes a lot of AI, which is a good segue to Bennett, I think.
Hey, thanks, Ian. Thanks, Sanja. I'm really excited to be here today in this context. And Ian framed a lot up about my history and my passion. I've spent the better part of 10 years implementing data science, machine learning, and now rebranding and evolving with AI inside of companies like Amazon, Pfizer, BNY Mellon, Merck, and Expedia. And I've spent a lot of my headspace on just trying to help organizations do adopting of new technologies and embracing possibilities and weaving that into strategy. So excited to share a little bit more about that today and drop a little few hints on what Ikona is up to from a product perspective as well, which is a big reason why I've joined and I'm excited to chat more about. So shall we?
Well, thank you guys very much. And it's, I mean, between the two of you, where have you not worked? You've covered some incredible organizations. And I mean, to say that you have like firsthand experience seeing how a lot of things work and roll out would be an understatement. So I love hearing that as well, because it's just such a breadth of practical experience that you're bringing to the table to be able to connect all the dots and help all of our friends on the call think about the future even more effectively. So before we get into the heart of the content, we wanted to spend a little bit more time, just a few more minutes, telling you who we are or who our companies are. Because a lot of times what's happened in webinars is we get so passionate, we talk about our thought leadership and all of this new knowledge that we have. And in the end, people ask us, okay, that was amazing, but like, how can you help us? So We'll tell you a little bit about who we are and why we're having this conversation today and how we work with organizations in these areas. So, as I mentioned, I work for a company called QuestionPro. I have been with the organization for about 5 years, a client previously, maybe nearly 20 years ago, which was actually right around the foundation. So, I was one of QuestionPro's first clients and remained a fan. 2 decades later, we are about 400 people all the way across the globe. So you can see on the map all the different places we actually have data centers. We have people in even more places than are on the map. And so we are, as a company, a bit of a global citizen company. And we have three major pillars in our organization. So, as I mentioned, I lead the employee experience business unit where we really focus on employee listening. And wow, has it been increasingly interesting over the last few years? And I would say every day more because with so many different changes, people are sensing different things, they have different needs, they're looking for different things out of their employer, maybe for a different relationship. So it's just been a really fascinating place increasingly to be in, help organizations better connect with their employees and really bring those passions to life and create a win-win for business and employees both. So that's our employee experience business unit that focuses predominantly on surveys. We also have customer experience, which, as you can imagine, has been a hotter and hotter topic, the intertwining between employee and customer experience. So if you're interested in learning more in that area, definitely let me know. And then we have a very significant market research arm where we partner with organizations across the globe to really, whether it's universities or large employers, whether they're understanding doing academic research or doing research on their next product launch and anything in between. And we also, for our employee experience area, have the great advantage to be able to also study the market through our market research arm. So very interesting combination and overlap in interest and goals that we want to bring for our clients between the three different business divisions. So that's all I'll tell you about QuestionPro. If you'd like to learn more, let me know. But again, just wanted to share some of the context around what we do as we continue our conversation. And I know, Ian, you talked a little bit about Ikona Analytics, but I'd love for you to share a little bit more detail because I've just been one of your biggest fans, and it's incredible to see you grow the team. And so I'd love for you to share with our friends on the call a little bit about what is it that you've done and what are you planning to do moving ahead?
Yeah, I'll hit on this, and then we'll get into the heart of the conversation and mutual admiration club, Sanja. We've been on this journey in the space as peers for a long time, and that's probably true of many people listening. So I feel fortunate and just kind of honored to be a part of the space now, as I have been for a number of years. And so Ikona is fairly young. We just started about 18 months ago, and the reason I was a little cheeky with the number of employees, thing one is that we're excited, not today, but we'll announce very soon a chief product officer that we're bringing on from someone in industry that is a very good fit and I think is going to be an exciting add to the team. And then we also are evolving ourselves. You talked a little bit about QuestionPro's journey, Sanja, with market research, CX, EX. In a similar way, Ikona started off as a consultancy, and we still are a consultancy, but we're moving very quickly with Bennett's help towards more of an AI platform company that combines services with software. And so we're productizing a lot of the knowledge and approaches and rubrics and ways to kind of understand organizational data capability with the assistance of an AI platform that we're building. And we also do that with humans, which we're launching a talent network and a couple other channels that a lot of our peers in industry and practitioners that are in industry, I think, would be interested in. And so we'll be putting out more on that soon. But I think the short on this is that over the past 2 years, I would say, there's been an influx of talent or an outflow of talent from corporations into the the industry. And there's a ton of incredibly talented people that are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, in between, have 10, 15, 20 years of depth in HR tech, strategy, analytics, AI, research. And we're creating a channel and an outlet and a platform to bring these types of practitioners into projects, in project formats that kind of rest on the foundation of what we offer through the platform. And we'll talk a little bit more about today. So it's a pretty exciting twist that we're putting into the company on the AI side and on the software side.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing the journey and the evolution, because like you said, we have a very tight-knit community, and it's good as quickly as you're evolving and learning what's most important to your clients and everybody that you're talking with. It's very clear how agile and quick you've been to really adapt and say, okay, I'm understanding these different needs, and needs are involved because it's not just about the understanding and being. I mean, you, out of all people, have access to such an incredible network. So even like I got goosebumps when you were talking about pulling all these different individuals in, because I totally agree with you. Over the last few years, we've seen some brilliant minds go from large organizations to being more independent, like yourselves, and to be able to pull that back together and give that knowledge back in a different capacity to large organizations, I feel like is such an incredible gift. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for being a trailblazer in that area. I absolutely love the business model.
It's one of the gifts of the community, I think, is the collective talent and the community brain. And so it seems like a great thing to do, and it's the right thing to do. So we're doing it.
Absolutely. I love it. All right. So jumping into our content, when we reconnected and slight teaser talked about a workshop that we're going to be doing together at X Day coming up in October, you guys brought up this new framework called wiring, sensors, and mechanisms. Now, do tell a little bit more about what is this framework?
Well, let me start off, and then I'll pass over to Bennett. But I think it's important to, before we get into the kind of the guts of WSM, we should talk about like why we think this is important and who it's for. And it's for HR leaders, but particularly for CHROs and kind of heads of functions, heads of large teams. So the evolution of HR here is really important to talk about. Historically, we think about HR, and if we go back even into like the early part of the 20th century, we had personnel, and we saw that evolve kind of in the 50s and 60s with like the very beginnings of HR systems and platforms, and in the 90s that kind of thought led and evolved further with with strategic HR and a lot of the famous writings and books that a lot of us studied on in the 90s and early 2000s. We start to see cloud computing. We start to see the internet come into the fold. We start to see open source software, programming languages start to stick. People analytics becomes a thing in the early 2000s, 2006, 7, 8, 9, around there. And tech-enabled HR is a gross understatement. I think it sounds kind of a clunky thing to say because, of course, why wouldn't HR be tech-enabled? It wasn't always. I could think back, Sanja, maybe you can too, to the days where you would put mail in interoffice manila envelopes and it would be 7 to 10 business days, and then web forms on the internet were introduced and people's minds were blown. Like, wow, this new tool, this new technology is really changing workflow and how work gets done. And that seems so odd to think about now because, of course, the internet has always been here. It hasn't, though. Similarly, AI is here now. We believe that it's not a fad. It's not a bubble that's going to burst and go away. We're at the front end of a 10 to 20 year arc and an era that will change how work gets done. It'll affect people's lives for better or for worse. We need to make sure that it's for better. And we need to think about reinvention of HR. I think historically, HR has been tops down, compliance driven, kind of verticalized in terms of programs and processes that get coded into software and then delivered. And it's very hard. We've talked a lot about this, Sanja and Bennett, and I've talked about it a lot too, to kind of unify data across different verticals in HR and to create unified data models. There are some companies that are built on building one model. One model comes to mind. You in the survey space look at the employee experience, kind of irrespective perhaps of where someone sits in the org. So that horizontal kind of connective tissue is the seedling of an idea that we germinated into something called WSM. And it kind of challenges this notion of, among other things, vertical tops down HR with more of a horizontal connected posture. And it really is, I think, challenging the way that a lot of practitioners and consultants have thought about the holy trinity of people, process, and technology. Not saying that that's not important, that definitely still has a place, but that's not the answer. That's not the answer itself anymore, and not in the AI era. And so this notion of reinventing and reimagining on the basis of how work gets done is where WSM came from. And we think that it's time to introduce that framework to help companies transform themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll turn it to Bennett when we kick off in this slide, and there's this idea about wiring. How do you define wiring in the context, especially of HR, and what are some of the primary challenges organizations face when HR systems are poorly wired?
Yeah, when I first thought about the word wiring, when we started kicking it around, the first place where my brain went to was around literally just systems. And, as we talked about it more, Ian, and we talked a little bit about it too, Sanja, it's more than that. I think of it as the blend of people, process, and technology together in that horizontal sort of era that we know is becoming dominant in a lot of discussions around flat organizations and networks. And so it really is the circuitry of linking, workflows, systems, data all together. So it's not just about the tech. It's a lot about how people are connecting and how silos are and aren't being broken down, how things are getting delayed in terms of process, and then really just like extracting insights and waiting for manual follow-up. It's kind of all of that together. So an example that comes to mind, and it's a solved problem in most organizations I've worked in, and hopefully for those of you who are listening, it's something that hopefully doesn't trigger too much trauma. But onboarding integrations is I think a famous one. If you don't have your onboarding systems talking directly to your HRIS, well, that creates a whole bunch of problems with people and process. New hire information isn't flowing automatically from your ATS into your payroll system, or new hire information isn't properly propagating in Workday. That creates a lot of weird meeting situations. It creates maybe entire hiring situations where you've got operations folks plugging data in manually from one system to another. So really, when we think about wiring, all of that should be seamless. The people involved should be talking to one another so that the integrations work properly. And that's really where we, as Ikona, think about transformation. It's just really thinking about that, taking a step back. How is all that working together, and how do we help our CHRO friends, our people technology friends, our workforce systems friends kind of make that wiring work together well? So that's what wiring's about.
No, it's incredible. I remember, what year was it? It was probably like 2010-ish, 11-ish, I worked for a company called Career Builder, and we had done an acquisition where um, we were trying to create this system that collected all the data in one place, and it was unbelievably difficult to do. So you were mentioning onboarding and all of these, like, and you would think, but it's the same company. And it's even like I've heard now a lot of that with EX and CX and the complexities of putting things together. But when you think about employees, like, oh, that shouldn't be that hard. It is incredibly complicated. And so to create that really wired system, I think is it's so powerful to be able to do that for so many different decisions that you were talking about.
Said.
Ian, do you want to walk us through the sensors part and particularly maybe why they matter to CHROs? What does it mean? We'll go step by step and then we can pull it together.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one more quick mention on wiring.
Yes.
A big plus one to the circuitry analogy that Ben put out there. I'd say kind of things to keep in mind too are when you think about the org chart. The org chart is a way of wiring decisions and flow, and that carries on technology, of course. But if you've ever been on a project and it's a cross-functional project, and you hear from the senior stakeholder, we're going to need to ignore the org chart on this one. It's like that is a verbal symptom of a need to rewire temporarily how work gets done to meet an objective. And the org design can work for you and it can work against you, just like technology can work for you and against you. So yeah, it's not just about the systems and the tech, to Bennett's point. It's about the way that you've laid out and coded roles and responsibilities and organizations to get work done. And the onboarding example is a good one because when you're onboarding someone, you're cutting across a workflow is cutting across maybe half a dozen departments. And how was your onboarding experience? Sanja, you've probably written that question into countless surveys and lamented the answers. It's like, wow, this looks like a crummy experience because it's hard to kind of catch the feedback, the context, the stories at the edges of those hops from recruiting to comp to IT to real estate to the hiring manager. So how well things are working in that example is difficult to understand because, among other things, we don't have a great way to listen or sense or understand in our world. Stories and the spoken word are highly rich and contextual, and that's what we seek to kind of go into clients to understand with some of our approaches. But surveys are useful there. System usage is useful there. Yeah. Talking to humans and hearing what they have to say is useful, and that's hard to scale. But scaling how you listen in surveys or how you listen in writing, in chat rooms, in recorded conversations that land transcriptions that you can then conduct machine learning and LLM kind of oriented analysis on, all sensors. So sensors are really about digitizing perspectives, tacit knowledge, experiences, and turning that into data that you can then plug into and through wiring to do something useful with. And you've heard me say this before, Sanja. This would be a good study for us to do. I contend that people analytics leaders, when you think about the data you could have through a variety of sensors, I think leaders have less than 50%, and that's being generous, of the data that you need to really understand how work is getting done in product, but out of product. There's so much that happens out of product that you just don't know. And I think thinking hard about sensors and different varieties of sensors is a way into that space to create all kinds of interesting possibilities.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And just, I think about understanding employees, understanding how work is done, and then even like something as simple as understanding your significant other. There are ways that like we communicate or we ask or we understand or we put back the information in the world and where do you look? And it's so complex. And I think what's interesting too is over time, we're learning a little bit. Sometimes you say, I don't know what I don't know. We're starting to learn a little bit more about what we don't know, but then we still need to figure out how do we solve for it. So that's kind of been, I think, like an interesting, a lot of the things that you talked about sensors, like really sparked a thought in my head is that, maybe 50% of the data being generous, but then I think we're starting to know where can we poke at different things. And there's also, we won't get into it a lot today, I know, but just even the mention of psychological safety. And when you're having these conversations, how really quality of information do you get? And that is far from only a problem in organizations. The same with significant others. Like, I don't know about you guys, but there are times where I'm like, should I tell my partner how I'm feeling right now? I don't know. Like, what's the pro or the con? Like, it could go either way. And it's just their human nature. But the more we create safe spaces and the more we know actually what's going on, the better action we can take. So I think in this area, there's so much from data gathering, from using, like you were saying, different machine learning, LLMs, to creating that psychological safety and being able to get the best, actually cleanest input to do our analysis. We have tremendous opportunities in all the different areas.
And the context too, right? Like if you ask someone, how's your day going? And you give them a 5-point scale, that can be useful. And if someone hits a 3, they could either be kind of like in the middle, or they could say, my day was garbage when I came in the door because all of these things are solvable, by the way. But it got better towards the end of the day because I had lunch with my friends, Sanja and Bennett, and we talked about that. But like you just missed so much context that landed as kind of like otherwise, kind of a run of the mill. I'll just hit this value. So I think contextualizing surveys as a very important sensor with stories, for instance, is a powerful idea that we're keying in on.
Absolutely. Bennett, would you add something to the sensors area? Ian and I sometimes we've known each other for so long, we can take over, but I know you're so knowledgeable about this. So I definitely want to come to you to see what you'd add.
Yeah, well, huge +1 to a couple of observations both of you have had. One is, having 50% of the data available to really richly get context and frame sort of the broader issues that one's facing in an ecosystem, an HR ecosystem, a culture ecosystem is huge. So that's one that comes to mind, and it's a really exciting time and an interesting time to see how this is evolving so fast, not only in the AI era, but just watching the people analytics market with organizational network analysis being woven into qualitative data sets, the maturity of companies and how they are leveraging qualitative data through not only surveys but rich sort of text responses that are getting mined by AI through surveys is really fascinating. So the sensors that we already have in place are only providing richer and richer data. So I think that makes a really nice segue to mechanisms and what do we do with that. So I think you might have a couple of short thoughts to share there, Sanja, about mechanisms. Ian, I know you do too, but I'm happy to share more of our thinking on that piece as well.
No, please do. Please do. We can kick off with you and then we'll turn it over to you and we'll flip it this time.
Yeah. Sounds good. So, we're talking a lot about, needing more rich data and insights from sensors. And we talked about sort of the transformation possibilities around wiring and how people are acting on data, making data more streamlined and processes around that more effective to harness the rich sensor data that you get. But mechanisms is really a close cousin to that. It's really like, what are you doing ritualistically, and what are you doing on a regular basis to inspect that data and really do something about it, and then commit to doing something about what you're doing about it. So Ian and I at Amazon learned quite a bit about mechanisms. That's kind of the lifeblood of Amazon. And it's one of the things I really cherish about my time there. So, an example is your weekly business review, your quarterly business review, your whatever cadence, XBR, and really just committing to putting that meeting on the calendar, having like a simple report that's where you're able to review that sensor data, and then saying, hey, why is this not working the way that we expect? We see an anomaly here. What's that anomaly about? Hey, Ian, what are we going to go do about that? Is that your action item? Is that mine? Okay. Well, in the next meeting, let's have a read back on that and see if the anomaly went away or it changed. That's what mechanisms are really all about. And to me, that's where like a transformation effort really hits the road, but it's also like the teeth brushing or the hygiene that you need to do to keep the transformation going. So that's what a mechanism is to me.
Oh, it makes incredible sense. And I have so many thoughts going through my head before I put any of those out into the world. I do want to turn it over to you, Ian, and to see what you would add with mechanisms, and in particular, why do they matter to CHROs, and what could they look like in this context?
I mean, Bennett pretty much nailed it. But I guess what I would add is mechanisms. There's three things. There's input, there's inspection, and there's output, and action is part of the output. And then you see if actions were taken and if that affects your inputs. And so you have to know and narrow down on what you're looking at and what you're considering to be important. A lot of data teams in HR and CHROs tend to get frustrated when there's victory declared because there's a huge dashboard that was published, and it's got everything you could need, which is the problem. It's got everything you could need, not everything that you actually need to focus on knowing where there's pain and how to improve on it. And so narrowing in on what's important is really key. Knowing what good, what bad, what kind of marginal looks like from like an anomaly and a boundary standpoint is really important. But then the most important thing is forehead slappingly obvious. It's getting the right people in the room on the right cadence with expectations to come prepared on what's happening behind that metric or trend or value that we can't see in the data that influences where it's going. So go and talk to humans that are in the field or in the business that have to do with that metric, and listen to them and hear them and come back with a plan. So right there, we loop back around the wheel from wiring to sensors back into mechanisms. And so there's a lot of accountability and leadership that comes into play when you're building a mechanism, and someone's got to own it, someone's got to run it, and someone's got to keep people accountable. And maybe Bennett, the orange loop around WSM, it could be leadership, culture, psychological safety, because like you can't really do any of this well if people aren't leading it and building the kind of place that feels safe and kind of valued to call out maybe some uncomfortable truths via sensors. Let's measure it in mechanisms, and let's plug those signals back into wiring. And that's kind of where we think about closed loops on the right. A lot of teams struggle with finding the right signal amid data, but then connecting it to action in a way that feeds back into the signal moving. We would argue you need sensors and wiring and mechanisms in between to close that loop and make that an actual capability, and not just, as our friend Jeff B would say, good intentions.
Yeah. I will spend just maybe a couple of minutes highlighting a few things, because there's so much. But as you were talking about, even at the beginning about dashboards and having so much information, I think to me, one of the most challenging things today in a way is having access to more things than we've ever been able to before.
Right.
To me, the problem then is focus because you can get distracted so easily. And there could be so many different things. And like anything in life, there's only so many hours in the day. Generally, there are only so many resources. And so you've got to find your north and you have to, as much as possible, have relentless focus on things you figure out are most important to you. However, that's where this sensors area comes in because I think I don't know why I've been in the world of work for many many years, but oftentimes I equate thinking about careers and workplaces to personal life. And so when I think personal life, I think about all the ways that we have to take care of ourselves and our well-being and our relationships with others. And if you have kids, school, like there's so many different things. And so a lot of times we'll prioritize. I will say, you know what, I'll prioritize now my relationship with my child. I'll prioritize some of my self-care things, which is sleep and something, maybe drinking water, staying really hydrated. But then you have to be open that if something comes in that could be important and it wasn't before, but it came up, like a doctor's appointment, something shows up in your blood, but like you've got to keep checking that. You can't spread yourself too thin on everything, but there's also that danger of then having this tunnel vision of saying, I found my focus and there's something really critical happening, but you're not looking that way. And so you miss it. And so all of a sudden, all these other things that you've done an amazing job focusing on because at the time they were most important, all of a sudden something's happening, but you've lost that sensor that something else came up that's actually impacting everything across the board. So we live in such a complex world, but I love the way that you're explaining it, being able to balance between these different, staying focused, staying disciplined, but then also having the sense of what's going on so we don't miss something really critical, especially if it didn't exist maybe at the beginning of our journey or analysis.
So well said. Yeah, if I were to take what you said and put it to a picture, I might on the right hand side of this page, if you could imagine the signal being 5 times as large or 5 times as many, and the action being smaller and nothing in between. It's like you have a lot that you need to contend with, and you have to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
How do you do that? That I think is a big challenge for CHROs. And especially in the last 24, 36 months with a lot of forces that are changing the way that HR operates with work, with technology, with macroeconomic, socio-geopolitical. I mean, there's so much that you have to be on top of and listen to and understand to make informed decisions and be evidence-based. And we think WSM is a way to kind of increase your odds of being evidence-based in a world where there's so much signal and not enough time to act. And so you're making informed choices in ways that are repeatable and not just, kind of shooting by the hip.
Absolutely. So I'd love for the rest of our time to jump into action. And so hopefully all of our guests and friends are thinking like, this sounds amazing. Like, what do I do? Where do I start? Before we go to the action, though, I just wanted to check with both of you if there's anything more you add to the discussion here.
I think I'm ready to chat through how we can help organizations implement some of the WSM framework a little bit. Yeah.
All right, let's do it. I love it because a lot of times it's early in my career. I've tried to get better. I got feedback like, Sanja, you're such a dreamer. You can inspire people. But then what do we do? give us the steps. Where do we go from here? So I love that you guys put this together because I'm sure everything we talked about now, to me at least, has been incredibly convincing and powerful and created urgency to act. So whether it's a CHRO or somebody in the people analytics team or anybody having this conversation with us that's listening, saying, I'm in, tell me, what do I do? I wake up tomorrow, where do I go? How do we start to work on this? Can you walk us through your recommendations and in some ways your roadmap for success?
Sure. So One thing that we do at Icona is we help run like a large assessment over your entire ecosystem of people, process, and technology, but really to get the wiring together around those things better, and then also give a little bit of an assessment on the quality of your sensors and your mechanisms to put things into action. So organizations can complete a self-assessment diagnostic to understand that entire current state across all HR domains, starting, and if you think about it in terms of the employee life cycle, from onboarding an employee and pre-onboarding all the way to offboarding and everything that happens in between. But overlaying on top of that, your data governance, the infrastructure, the technology infrastructure you have for that, the tools and the products that you have to really extract value of that. So really just getting an eagle eye 30,000-foot view of that whole entire ecosystem to know where to dive in and know where you need to pay a little bit more attention, both because of your business goals that are driving that, but also because of the things that we know are best practice. So we like to give clients a little bit of a view on what is the best kind of state-of-the-art current state that drives value for businesses, and where do you stack up relative to that? So, starting with that is that understanding of the health of the wiring and the sensors, and then building mechanisms to address that is something else that we like to do. So I think we've got some great survey analogies for that. So where are we doing a great job from a listening perspective and the candidate experience, or where are we seeing employees having a little bit of a heartburn around their tools that they get to use every day? Getting a sense of that. Do we get the right data for that? Do we need to improve the way that we're asking about that? Do we need to improve the way that we're acting on that? Let's create a plan together around that. So that's how we think about implementing WSM, and then picking a few areas to concentrate, baby steps on getting there, and then scaling out of that, so that we can build that sort of a ritual, those mechanisms in the right spot to focus on other areas when we need to over time.
Yeah. I would not to repeat it, but I guess what I would say to kind of put an analogy to it is, if you buy a house and you move in knowing that this is going to be a fixer-upper, I think a lot of leaders can relate to that analogy. And you think to yourself, I need to renovate this whole house. But then you think, like, where do I start? You probably won't start tearing everything down while you're living it. Some people do. That's kind of awful. But you want to understand what's going on. Like, what does the blueprint look like? What does the wiring look like? What does the plumbing look like? Let's get it surveyed. Let's inspect. Let's map the current state. And then you pick some areas that you think you're going to get some really kind of maybe some quick wins or high value return on it. Like, pick an area that's important to you that lines up with what you want to do in your life or in your work life, and then you build. And then you want to understand if it's working or not, and you want to do that with a vision that kind of aims at something big, but don't bite off more than you can chew. Kind of nibble the elephant, and then learn how to renovate, and then repeat that process quickly. So it's a very agile approach that we're taking, and we can talk more at X Day. Sanja, we're excited too about how we do some of these things with our platform, particularly to Bennett's point, how we use humans and AI to listen, to sense, and then to codify and encode how organizations are doing compared to industry in the form of different playbook artifacts, co-pilot artifacts that we can create. And we're excited to kind of to bring this approach with WSM incorporated into a workshop in Austin next month. So
I love that. And before I share information about that in the next slide, any last bits you guys want to share about any of the implementation before I close us out and hopefully convince some of our friends on the call to come see us in person?
Well, I guess maybe just to float a teaser or two out there. like I said towards the start of the call, we are moving more towards an AI platform and products that stem off of this platform. So without letting the cat completely out of the bag, when you think about data and heat maps and diagnostics, we're kind of coming up with ways to interact, digitally interact with those types of artifacts, and also to listen and understand at scale where you're getting better, where you're getting worse when it comes to all data capabilities in your HR ecosystem using agentive listening and voice AI. And we can share more at X Day on that, but we'll be dropping a white paper on WSM that'll shed a little bit more light on that going forward, and we'll be also making some product announcements later in the year as we get into the fall. So I don't know, Bennett, would you add anything there?
I'm excited to get it all out in the wild, and more than happy to connect with folks throughout the fall, both virtually and in person. So looking forward to all of that. Yeah.
I'm so incredibly excited about what you guys are building. It's just, again, it's such a privilege to be privy to some of the early information and conversations, and of course, lip sealed until it comes out into the world. With that, for any of you that are here that would like to learn more, Ian and Bennett are going to be joining us at QuestionPro's X Day. The X Day conference is on October 9th, but they have a very exclusive workshop where they're going to be going through the framework in more detail. That's going to be on October 8th. So there will be a note coming out. You could have expressed interest when you signed up for the webinar. Reach out to one of us, but we would absolutely love to see you there. It's going to be very small, about 20 people maximum in the room. It's application only, but what you heard in this 1 hour, you're actually going to get to roll up your sleeves, have conversations. Ian and Bennett and their special guest, special new partner, are going to walk you through a lot more information and application for your organization specifically. So please do reach out if you're interested. We'd love to see you in person. It's a really incredible opportunity to get the community together and spend some more time with these wonderful guys. And Bennett, you were just mentioning earlier, for anyone to get in touch and that you love to learn more, I wanted to share our contact information here as well. So again, please connect with us or reach out. We know that it's a very tight community. We're always welcoming more people in the world of people analytics and HR, and really understanding how to make this world of work a better place, especially in this wild time. And I think it's going to take really significant disruption, like what Ian and Bennett are talking about, to advance us significantly to be able to start to create better cultures, create better employee experiences. We've accelerated, we've paused, but I feel like as a community, we can sprint. We could do such an amazing job running, but together we'll get a lot farther. So definitely, again, come to X Day, sign up for the workshop if you can. If you can't, please reach out to us. Let's keep this conversation going. And Ian and Bennett, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for today. Thank you for this incredible discussion. Thank you for putting this framework together. I know it's going to be incredibly, incredibly impactful for our community. So thank you for who you are and for what you do, and especially for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you, Sanja.
Thanks.
Loving the energy, loving the next steps here for Austin, and yeah.
Yeah. No, Sanja, thanks so much. You and Viv and Artie and the team, the QuestionPro team is amazing, and we're proud partners, and really excited for X Day 2, given what we'll be kind of introducing, but also in partnership with some tools that QuestionPro provides, and I think yes to your comment around disruption. I would kind of maybe angle that towards reinvention and augmentation, and I think we're gonna kind of combine and collaborate in new ways, and X Day is going to be the first of many. So thank you for your your grace and your partnership. Appreciate you.
I can't wait to see you guys in a month. Thank you so much again for everything. Thank you for all of you for joining us, and we can't wait to see you again soon, hopefully in Austin.